When someone asks you about your childhood, do you ever pause for just a second too long? Not because it was terrible, not because nothing happened, but because somehow the answer feels incomplete, like there's something missing, something you can't quite explain. You remember pieces, moments, responsibilities, but not the feeling of actually being a child? And if you're honest, it almost feels like you skipped parts of your own life. Like between being a kid and becoming an adult, entire chapters just disappeared. So, let me ask you something. What if your childhood didn't end suddenly, but quietly faded away, while no one was paying attention? Childhood doesn't always end with something loud or obvious. Most of the time, it ends quietly. It looks like a kid standing on a chair, cooking dinner for their siblings because no one else is home. It looks like listening carefully to your parents' voices, not for what they're saying, but for how they're saying it, trying to predict if tonight will be peaceful or not. It looks like becoming the one who calms everyone down, even though you're the youngest in the room, and somewhere along the way, you learn something most kids never have to learn that early. You learn how to read the room before you ever learned how to read books. Psychology has a word for this: parentification. But don't let that word make it sound clinical or distant. All it really means is this: a child slowly stepping into roles that were never meant for them, taking on emotional weight, responsibility, and awareness far too early. Not because they wanted to, but because in some way they had to. And here's the part that makes it so hard to recognize later. The scariest part is, it doesn't feel like trauma when it happens. It feels normal. It feels like life. Because when you're that young, you don't question it. You adapt to it. You tell yourself, this is just how things are. And without realizing it, you start becoming someone who is always needed, always aware, always holding things together, even when no one asked you to. From the outside, it looks like maturity. People describe you as calm, responsible, dependable. The strong one, the one who has it together. But what if that's not the full story? What if you weren't actually mature? What if you just adapted? Because when you grow up in an environment where things feel unpredictable, your nervous system learns one simple rule: stay alert or fall behind. So instead of relaxing into childhood, your body stays on standby. Watching, listening, scanning, you start picking up on tiny emotional shifts: the tone in someone's voice, the silence between words, the tension in a room. You don't just hear people, you read them. You learn to predict what might happen next, to solve problems before they fully form, to step in before things fall apart. And over time, this becomes who you are. Not just something you do, but something you believe you are. But here's the twist most people never consider. Your personality is partly a survival strategy. That version of you, the observant one, the reliable one, the emotionally aware one, was built in response to an environment that required it. And while it helped you navigate that world, it also trained your mind to believe that safety depends on never switching off. So even now, in moments that are actually calm, your body doesn't fully trust it, because somewhere deep inside, you're still waiting for something to go wrong. Here's where things start to reveal their cost, because the same traits that once helped you survive don't always help you live. On the surface, you seem capable of handling almost anything. Crisis? You're calm. Pressure? You perform. But when it comes to the simplest things, something feels off. Resting feels uncomfortable. Asking for help feels unnatural. Letting yourself be carefree, even for a moment, feels almost wrong. And underneath all of that, there's a quiet belief running in the background. If I stop, things fall apart. It's not something you say out loud, but it shapes how you move through the world. You stay busy, you stay prepared, you stay in control. Because slowing down doesn't feel like rest. It feels like risk. And this pattern doesn't just affect how you live. It deeply shapes how you love. You might notice yourself drawn to people who need something from you, people who are struggling, distant, or emotionally unavailable, not because you enjoy the difficulty, but because it feels familiar. Because somewhere in your past, love wasn't something you simply received. It was something you earned by being useful, by being strong, by being needed. So now, when someone shows up consistently, when they're open, available, and steady, it can feel confusing, even uncomfortable, like you're waiting for something to change, for the other shoe to drop. And this is where it gets quietly painful. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar love, because at least with pain, you know what to expect. You know how to navigate it. You know your role. But real, stable love? That requires something you were never taught. How to receive without performing, how to be cared for without earning it. And that can feel more vulnerable than anything you've faced before. There's another layer to this that often gets misunderstood. From the outside, it can look like overthinking, like you're just someone who worries too much, plans too much, or needs everything to be perfect. But that's not really what's happening. What looks like overthinking is actually your mind trying to stay one step ahead of uncertainty. You replay conversations. You imagine different outcomes. You prepare for things that haven't even happened yet. Not because you want to, but because somewhere in your past, unpredictability meant something real. Conflict, instability, things falling apart without warning. So now, control feels like safety. You organize, you plan, you try to account for every possible variable, because if you can predict it, maybe you can prevent it. And over time, this becomes exhausting. Not the kind of tiredness that sleep fixes, but a deeper kind, the kind that lives in your body. Your nervous system has been running in the background for years, constantly scanning, constantly preparing, constantly bracing. And eventually, it starts to wear you down. But here's the part most people don't understand. You're not overthinking. You're over-preparing for a world that once felt unsafe. And even if your life looks different now, your body hasn't fully caught up. So you keep carrying that invisible weight, trying to manage everything, trying to stay ahead of everything, just in case. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't look like loneliness. It doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by people and still feeling like no one really sees you, because you've become fluent in something most people never have to learn: emotional labor. You can walk into a room and instantly feel what's off. You notice the tension before anyone says a word. You adjust your tone, your energy, your presence, just to keep everything stable. You're the one who smooths things over, the one who keeps conversations from turning into conflict, the one who makes sure everyone else feels okay. And the strange part is, you do it so naturally, you barely even notice it anymore. It's automatic. But over time, something starts to build beneath the surface. Because while you're busy holding everything together, no one is really holding you. People rely on you. They trust you. They come to you when things fall apart. But very few stop to ask what it costs you to be that person. And even when they do, it can feel difficult to answer. Because you've spent so long being the one who manages everything, you don't quite know how to explain what you need, or how to let yourself need anything at all. And this is where that quiet, invisible loneliness settles in. You're the strong one, but no one checks if you're okay. Not because they don't care, but because you've become so good at hiding the weight that no one realizes you're carrying it alone. So, what do you do with all of this? Especially when it doesn't feel like something you're allowed to call trauma, because nothing big happened. No single moment you can point to, just 1,000 small moments where you had to be more than a child. And that's where healing begins. Not by trying to fix who you are, but by finally allowing yourself to feel what you never had time to feel. You have to grieve your childhood, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, honest way. Grieve the version of you who didn't get to be messy, who didn't get to be carefree, who learned too early that being needed mattered more than being held. Because here's something that can change everything. Being needed is not the same as being valued. Just because people relied on you doesn't mean you were truly seen. And your worth was never meant to be measured by how much you could carry. So part of healing is learning something completely new, how to receive, to let someone show up for you without immediately trying to give something back, to sit with care without feeling like you have to earn it first. And maybe the hardest part of all, giving yourself permission to rest. Not because everything is finally done, but because you are allowed to stop. Allowed to not be in control. Allowed to not have all the answers. And slowly, over time, you begin to understand something deeper. You don't have to earn love anymore. Not through effort, not through sacrifice, not through being the strong one. You are already worthy of it, just by being here. And maybe, in a quiet way, this is where everything comes back to. That part of you, your inner child, the one who had to grow up too fast, who learned to stay strong, stay alert, stay needed, is still there, still holding on, still carrying more than it was ever meant to carry. But maybe it doesn't have to anymore. Maybe, for the first time, it's safe to put some of that weight down. So before you move on, just sit with this question for a moment. What would it feel like to finally let go? Not all at once, not perfectly, just a little. If something in this video resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the fascinating psychology video.